Caitlin Clark's Nike deal didn't just make headlines. It blew the lid off simmering resentments within the WNBA. When Kennedy Carter delivered a hard, controversial hip check, it wasn't just about a rookie rivalry. It was a snapshot of something much deeper. Clark's $28 million endorsement, coupled with a Nike commercial portraying her as the league's future, triggered a backlash from veteran players who've long fought for recognition in a league plagued by financial hardship. Suddenly, Clark became a lightning rod, not only for admiration, but for decades of unspoken tension between legacy and marketability, tradition and change. Kathy Engelbert's silence on the incident and her magic bird analogy only deepened the divide, turning a moment of opportunity into a cultural flashpoint. This controversy is far more than a commercial dispute. It's a full-blown reckoning within the league. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. Clark's meteoric rise is challenging the WNBA's foundational identity, forcing uncomfortable questions about race, gender, and who gets to define the league's future. As Nike drives global branding, the WNBA faces a choice: evolve with a tie to commercial power or risk losing relevance by clinging to a crumbling. Caitlin Clark didn't just walk into the WNBA. She detonated into it. A rookie with a $28 million Nike deal. Her face was plastered everywhere before she even laced up for her first pro game. The message was clear. She wasn't just a player. She was a player, a symbol of the league's future, a brand-ready icon, and Nike's latest golden investment. But that spotlight came with shadows. Veteran players, many who've been grinding for years with minimal mainstream attention, watched as Clark skipped the line, not just with endorsements, but with media coverage, fan adoration, and league favoritism. A few congratulated her. Others? Not so much. The tension simmered immediately. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert tried to play peacemaker, or at least that's what it looked like on paper. But her comparisons of the brewing tension between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese to Magic and Bird didn't exactly help. Instead of de-escalating the drama, it felt like the league was leaning into it. Rivalry sell, sure, but this wasn't just about competition. It was about identity, legacy, and how the league treats its players. Engelbert's failure to directly call out the rising hostility, both on and off the court, left players and fans confused. Was the league okay with the cheap shots, the coded interviews, and the resentment? Or worse, was it hoping for them? Clark, for her part, tried to keep things composed publicly. In press conferences, she rarely retaliated with words. But behind the poise was a player carrying the weight of an entire league's branding shift. Nike had painted her as a savior in its now infamous ad, setting her up as a solution to women's basketball's decades-long struggle for relevance. That commercial might have looked inspiring to new fans, but for a lot of players, it hit differently. The subtle message that she alone was going to elevate the WNBA landed like a slap. And when Clark was invited to the Olympic team, the message back from the old guard was just as loud. It didn't take long for the resentment to show up in games. There was physicality, and then there was hostility. Every bump, shove, and stare felt personal. One of the most talked about moments came when Kennedy Carter checked Clark with no pretense of a basketball play. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't necessary. And the silence from the league afterward said more than any statement ever could. Instead of protecting one of its most marketable stars, the league seemed frozen. As clips of the incident racked up millions of views, the response was muted. No suspension. No clear condemnation. Just silence that felt complicit. On the court, Clark tried to play through it. She still pulled up from the logo, still hit clutch threes, and still sold out arenas. But you could see the shift. The joy of the game was getting swallowed up by the noise around it. Her game was dissected daily, not just for skill, but for what it represented. To some, Clark was a symbol of mainstream breakthrough. To others, she was a product of corporate overreach, marketed over merit. Nike's aggressive branding, while brilliant from a business standpoint, threw gasoline on a fire the league didn't seem equipped to put out. The weight started to show. In moments off the court, Clark looked visibly tired. Not physically, but emotionally, getting cheered and jeered in equal measure. Her every move scrutinized under a microscope. Fans were turning games into battlegrounds, fueled by online arguments and social media tribalism. Instead of celebrating basketball, every game became a referendum on legacy, race, and marketability. Clark's rise was supposed to lift the league. Instead, it exposed every crack the WNBA had been trying to patch for years. The hits kept coming, literally, more games, more fouls, more basketball plays that barely disguised the frustration behind them. And again, the league's silence echoed. Where was the protection? Where were the statements? If this were the NBA, would a star player be expected to take this level of aggression without consequence? Every time Clark hit the floor, it wasn't just about contact. It was about message. That message was clear. Welcome to the WNBA. Now prove you belong. And if you think your contract protects you, think it. Clark continued to show restraint publicly, trying to keep the conversation on the game. But by then, it wasn't really about basketball anymore. Her presence had triggered a deep, unresolved identity crisis within the league. She was accused of being privileged, of being handed opportunities. The fact that she was white, conventionally marketable, and from a major college program only added fuel. Players like Angel Reese were cast in opposition, not by choice, but by the media, fans, and even leadership narratives. What started as competition had become a culture war. The good girl versus the villain. The golden rookie versus the overlooked veterans. The league didn't create these narratives, but it didn't stop them either. And with every tweet, every passive-aggressive comment, the toxicity grew. The real tragedy wasn't just Clark being targeted. It was the way the league failed everyone. New fans were alienated by the infighting. Veteran players felt disrespected. And Clark? She was left stranded between marketing hype and locker room politics. Kathy Engelbert had a choice. She could have addressed the hostility head-on, made clear that while rivalries are fine, targeted aggression isn't. Instead, she leaned into the entertainment value. Comparing Clark and Reese to Magic and Bird might have sounded strategic, but it skipped over the actual tension on the court. What the WNBA needed was leadership. What got was silence and spin. And now, even the Olympic snub feels like part of performance. A reminder that power in the league isn't just about skill or sales. It's about legacy and control. The moment Kennedy Carter knocked Clark to the ground, it wasn't just a foul. It was a flashpoint. A single clip that summed up everything boiling beneath the surface. It went viral instantly, the kind of viral that doesn't fade after a day. Debates broke out across TV panels, fan forums, even political circles. But as the frenzy reached a fever pitch, the WNBA's response was silence. No fine, no suspension, just a shrug. That told fans everything they needed to know. The league either didn't see a problem or didn't want to admit there was one. Whether it was calculated or negligent, it left the door wide open for the cycle to repeat. And it did. Clark kept shooting, literally and metaphorically. She had to. That was her only response, because no one was coming to her defense. Not publicly, not officially. Every game became another chapter in a messy saga that was never really about basketball fundamentals. Her pull-up threes and no-look passes were dissected not just for skill, but for symbolism. Was she earning it? Was she too hyped? Was she getting what she deserved? Nike had rolled the dice on Clark as the face of the future. But what they didn't calculate was how deeply that move would cut. The league had its structure, its culture, its unwritten rules. And now, Clark was breaking all of them without even trying. She spoke softly in the post-game presser, answering the same questions with the same calm tone. Yes, it was physical. Yes, she was okay. No, she wouldn't comment on intent. She never called out the players, never blamed the refs, always toeing the company line. But under that restraint, you could feel the shift. She wasn't just playing the game anymore. She was managing a controversy she didn't create. The kind of tension that can't be solved with hustle or humility. Nike had made her a symbol. The league made her a lightning rod. She was trapped in between. The photos told the story. Clark hitting the deck. Clark with a bruise. Clark pulling herself up again. Again and again. The cameras didn't miss a second. Neither did the fans. But while the league saw viral potential, casual viewers started to ask bigger questions. Why was no one stepping in? Why did it feel like one of the league's most marketable players was being sacrificed for the sake of ratings? The answer came in what the league didn't say. They didn't want to look like they were playing favorites. But in trying to stay neutral, they showed indifference, and that was worse. Kathy Engelbert finally addressed the discourse again, but not with a crackdown, not with support, not even with acknowledgement of the escalating danger. She circled back to the rivalry angle. More Bird and Magic. More drama cells. But this wasn't a movie script. These were real players. Real fouls. Real hostility. Fans didn't need a media moment. They needed accountability. And so did Clark. By now, it wasn't about favoritism. It was about standards. If this was how you treated your biggest draw, what message were you sending to everyone else? The toll was showing. Clark's body language had shifted. Less celebration. More quiet, more isolation, a smile here and there, but nothing like the spark that had drawn millions in the first place. The joy of the game was being buried under a wave of negativity. The mental exhaustion was obvious to anyone paying attention. She wasn't just navigating the league as a rookie. She was surviving it as a symbol, a scapegoat, and a story the league refused to take responsibility for. And that burden doesn't show up on stat. Interviewers kept circling back to the same questions, hoping she'd finally bite, give them a headline, drop a name. But Clark stayed the course. "I'm just here to play," she'd say. "We're focused on the next game." It was polished, professional, and it hid the fact that she was doing emotional PR for a league that wasn't doing the same for her. And behind every interview was a system more concerned with optics than outcomes. As long as the games trended and the views poured in, there was no incentive to step in. Controversy wasn't crisis. It was content. The hits kept happening, and not just from players. Media figures jumped in, too. Commentators labeled her as soft, analysts questioning her toughness, fans questioning her worth, all while pretending it was just part of the game. But it wasn't just part of the game. It was personal, and it exposed the deeper fractures inside the WNBA. The old guard, the rising stars, the media machine, the corporate backers. They were all pulling in different directions. And Clark was at the center of it, absorbing the pressure from every side. Despite it all, Clark kept firing. Her numbers stayed strong, and the arenas stayed packed. But the stats felt secondary to the storm swirling around her. Every shot she took was a reminder of what was at stake, not just for her, but for the league. Because this wasn't just about whether Clark could succeed. It was about whether the league could handle what success actually looks like in 2026. Messy, complicated, driven by personality, brand, and narrative as much as talent. What started as a career launch had turned into a cautionary tale. The WNBA wanted growth. It got it, but it also got conflict, division, and the consequences of failing to lead. Clark didn't ask to be the face of that fallout, but here she was. Her story should have been one of triumph. Record deals, highlight reels, packed stadiums. Instead, it became a story about what happens when a league lets culture wars and gatekeeping swallow momentum. And unless something changes, she won't be the last player caught in the crossfire. The headlines showed the action, but the match photos told a different story. Frame after frame, Clark is either being double-teamed, knocked off balance, or midfall. It's not strategy. It's survival. And for all the talk about rivalries, it's starting to look like sanctioned targeting. No other rookie has had to navigate this kind of environment. Not with this level of scrutiny, not with this level of physicality, and definitely not while being used as a marketing centerpiece. Nike gave her the spotlight. The league lit the during media availability. Clark repeated what she's been coached to say. "I just play hard," she told reporters. "I want to help my team win." But there's only so many ways to reword the same answer when the real question isn't about basketball. It's about why the league keeps looking the other way. And that silence is louder than anything she could ever say in an interview. Every time she chooses grace over criticism, the burden gets heavier because the league isn't meeting her halfway. It's letting her carry both the branding and the backlash. When she pulls up from 30 feet, The crowd roars, but under the cheers, there's tension. For every fan in awe, there's another ready to say she's overhyped. For every made shot, there's a talking head questioning if she can do it against real defense. And through it all, Clark just keeps playing, because there's no option not to. The endorsements, the ticket sales, the attention, they've all made her a pillar of the WNBA's new era. If she cracks, the league feels it. Kathy Engelbert has praised Clark in interviews, called her transformative, highlighted her impact on attendance and viewership, but the compliments haven't translated into protection. There's a disconnect between the commissioner's admiration and the league's policies, or lack thereof. The league wants what Clark brings: ratings, headlines, momentum. But it hasn't reconciled how to defend that investment. There's a difference between letting players earn respect and letting them get repeatedly targeted on national TV. At this point, that line's been erased. It's becoming harder to pretend everything's fine. Off the court, Clark's demeanor has changed. There's a difference between being humble and being guarded, and Clark is definitely guarded now. You can see it in the way she speaks, how she chooses every word carefully, how she deflects, downplays, redirects. This isn't just rookie jitters or growing pains. It's what happens when a league lets its most valuable asset get swallowed up by internal resentment. And when fans pick up on it, the narrative shifts from excitement to concern. The physicality hasn't slowed down. If anything, it's escalating. And the WNBA's officiating crew hasn't made any meaningful adjustments. Replays show hits that go uncalled, off-ball contact that crosses a line. These aren't accidents. These are messages delivered through body checks and bruises. The culture around Clark is no longer just competitive. It's hostile. And the longer that hostility goes unchecked, the more it signals to players that this is acceptable, that the price of stardom is pain. And for fans, especially new ones tuning in for Clark, it's jarring. After games, the same cycle repeats. Clark sits in front of the mic, answers questions with maturity well beyond her years, and absorbs the fallout from things she never asked for. The focus isn't on her performance anymore. It's on how she's coping. That's not what any rookie should be managing. But the league let her become the epicenter of a storm and hasn't offered her an umbrella. Meanwhile, critics paint her silence as complicit or cowardly, missing the fact that she's trying not to set fire to an already flammable. The interviews now have an edge to them, not from Clark, but from the reporters. They're looking for a crack, a soundbite, a quote they can twist, but she's still not giving it to them. She's seen what happens when players speak out in this league. So she stays calm, answers the basketball questions, and dodges arrest. It's self-preservation. Because no matter how composed she is, one slip-up and the narrative will shift again. From overhyped rookie to arrogant star. It's a tightrope, and she's walking alone. And that's the saddest part. The loneliness. Not literal, but emotional. Being turned into a storyline instead of supported as a teammate. The league built her up as a generational talent, but forgot to build the infrastructure around her to protect what she represents. Clark doesn't just need support on the court. She needs support from the top, from leadership, from policy, from clear stances that tell players what the league will and won't tolerate. Instead, all she's getting is more attention and more silence. Kathy Engelbert's latest public comments praise the WNBA's rising popularity. She thanked the players. She thanked the fans. But there was still no real statement about the violence, the fouls, or the tone around Clark. No signal that the league was ready to confront what's happening. It's not about favoritism. It's about fairness. And right now, the league is failing that test. The spotlight is hot and the silence is cold. And Clark, who is supposed to be the spark of a new era, is stuck navigating a league still divided about whether she belongs. Each new game is another opportunity and another risk. The cameras are always ready. The headlines already half written. What should be a highlight reel of the historic rookie season keeps turning into a loop of bruises, tension, and unresolved conflict. Clark still brings it, still fills arenas, still makes shots that don't even look possible. But you can see in those mid-game moments, when she takes a hit and doesn't get the call, that she's starting to understand the rules here are different. Not just basketball rules. the unspoken ones. There's no clearer symbol of that than the hits she takes. Some blatant, some subtle, all too frequent. And every time it happens without consequence, it reinforces a message: tough it out or get out. That message doesn't just affect Clark. It echoes to every young player watching. Every young girl who sees her favorite player get shoved and ignored. That kind of silence doesn't just fail Clark. It discourages growth, discourages investment, discourages the next. Clark won't say it. Not publicly. She still shows up, still shakes hands, still answers questions. But you can tell. There's a level of frustration she's not letting out, maybe because she knows it would just be twisted into more drama. She's doing everything right, and it still isn't enough to get protection. And the longer that goes on, the harder it is to pretend like this is just part of being a rookie. This isn't about paying dues. It's about avoiding accountability. What could have been a breakthrough moment for the WNBA has turned into a warning sign. Clark's success should have brought the league together, lifted everyone with it. Instead, it's exposed rifts so deep that no marketing campaign can cover them up. This isn't just a sports story. It's a league at a crossroads, staring down its own contradictions. Growth versus gatekeeping. Star power versus team culture. Progress versus pettiness. And unless leadership starts acting like leadership, this fire's not going out. It's burning the foundation. If you've been watching this all unfold, we want to hear your take. Drop your thoughts below. Hit the like button if you think this conversation needs to keep going. And subscribe for more breakdowns on the chaos, the culture, and the people reshaping the game.